Hello, and welcome to Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm the human, Gina. Thank you for coming back if you have been here before. And if you are a new listener, I appreciate your presence. It means a lot. Uh, Most times, I don't really have a subject matter in mind when I start speaking, but I've been followed around pretty closely by something in particular. So I felt compelled to speak about it, and honestly, it was so compelling that I started an article about it as well. I guess it's funny, normally the article is the first thing and then the podcast comes after, but this is gonna be the first time that is reversed, where this, topic kind of climbed up my back and onto my shoulder, and, uh, I didn't have an inclination that I would write about it. So, the podcast is coming first, and then I have a bunch of notes already to write about it, so it's kind of interesting how this one came up. Maybe because it's a real time thing and I'm not thinking back to something that has already occurred or something that I've already experienced. So maybe that is the difference. But something really unusual happened to me recently, and I'm still kind of like I don't know, how do I put this? I want to remain I remain confident in my intuition, and this is something that I had to really get used to. So I'll take a really quick sidebar with this because this is really important. One of the effects of clearing your energetic debris, and I've talked about this many times, is that you have a clarity that you've never that well, I'll just speak in the first person that I've never had before. I have a new clarity that I had not experienced, at least not on a consistent basis. So maybe I had brief moments of clarity in my past, but since I've kind of cleared the energetic palette, or cleared the channel between my soul and my heart and my body, I have had a new clarity. And I think I haven't really spoken much about it because I've just gotten used to it. And clarity is a clear sense of something where you don't doubt it. And I think that, and also it could be an energetic hit or I'm sorry, a hit that you get from your, like an epiphany and an intuitive hit. That's what I meant to say, where your intuition tells you something like a loud voice, or it hits you like an idea or a revelation or an epiphany, which is why it's called epiphanies. So clarity, can come that way when you get an energetic or an intuitive hit. But I've been experiencing a consistent, fluid clarity. And I think maybe I should have talked more about this, although, like I said, it didn't really occur to me because it was just kind of the way things were. So, what I mean by that is where I used to doubt myself, I used to doubt what I was feeling or thinking. And this is one of the reasons why it took me so long to leave a bad relationship because I doubted my own, uh, intuition. I doubted my own inner voice. I didn't know her well enough to trust her. And I think that's really an interesting way to put it because I had gone so long just getting through and surviving that I didn't really understand that I had onboard navigation. I had this intuition that is basically a connection to my soul energy. And that soul energy is connected to the universe. So, there's this whole other engine, that's available to me, that was available to me that I was unaware of, during this time of, before I became awakened. And, I know that is a very popular phrase these days, awakening and spiritual awakening. And I fear that it gets overused and then the meaning becomes lost. But it truly is an awakening. I liken it to walking around in the dark and then one day the lights come on. I mean, it is truly an awakening from darkness into the illuminated, uh, aspects of our being. And so when you when I became illuminated or aware of myself, aware of my energetic self or my soul, is when I began to really think clearly. And this clarity helped me. Well, it wasn't as actually, when I think back to when I left my ex-husband back more than 2 years ago. Well, actually, the divorce will be final in, for 2 years at the end of this month, the end of the year 2022. And um I didn't have this clarity when I left him. I left him in a chaotic energy. And I think I referred to it as being pulled out by my ear, by my soul. And I stand by that even after all this time of being able to really reflect on it. I didn't have the intuitive wherewithal to leave on my own, you know, on my own. I really needed to be pulled out. And I do believe that has something to do with the energetic magnetism between my ex-husband and I as karmic soulmates. But I do also understand that when we are trapped in darkness, we can't see our way, so we don't know where we're going. And that's basically the simplest way I can put it. So we just walk a direction hoping to find something that we can um connect to, that gives us that feeling of belonging, or that feeling of understanding of who we are and what we're doing here. And I think we walk through our lives looking for that. And uh, let me be the one to tell you, you can walk for the rest of your life, and you don't find it until you sit down and surrender. So when I left my ex-husband, I was in this a very chaotic energy. I was unaware, and I could not make a conscientious decision to go. It was just something that it happened because my energy broke. And I refer to this as an energy break because, I can call it a nervous breakdown, but I don't think that really um, does justice to what actually happened technically. It was an energetic breakdown. So the energy that is in my body, which comes from my soul, basically sent me a it wasn't a warning. The warnings come, and we ignore the warnings. They are our intuition trying to speak to us, and then the warnings turn into physical feelings in the body, and we ignore those too because we're used to feeling badly or poorly. So we ignore the physical cues, which is stress and even illness, depression. These are the things we ignore. This is our body, our soul trying to tell us that we're heading towards danger, or that we're already in danger. So when that didn't work over time, my energy just stopped. And I believe that this happened to me in particular because my soul was ready for me to go on to this next phase in this human life. And I hope that's not entirely true. I hope that I would have gotten this um, I would have been able to eventually do this on my own, because one thing I recognized, that I was so wired to just survive. I didn't understand that I could also thrive. And I'm sure some people will understand what I mean by that. And so I stayed where I perceived I was the, you know, where I was safe. And I don't even understand what I thought safety meant. I mean, for me, it was just survival. I was in a relationship that I believed that I was loved, even though I didn't understand a lot of what was happening to me. And I stayed because I believed it was my effort, the effort that I made in my life, that allowed me to stay here. So, from an early age, I learned that love required effort, that you couldn't be just a good, loving person who was, genuine and authentic, because that wasn't enough for people to love me. And of course, none of that's true, but it's what we learn as children when we are abused or mistreated, or we are unconscientiously loved or managed. So, I learned from an early age that love requires effort. So I always overcompensated in order to feel like I, worthy of what I got, even if I only got scraps. So, in my last relationship, my 24-year relationship, almost 25 years, I guess I could just round it to 25. It's easier. Um, where I was with the same person and I was being emotionally manipulated, and I didn't understand that. I allowed a lot, or I tolerated a lot, because I became very tolerant in my life. So we get really good at tolerating things. So before we know it, we are tolerating the intolerable. So because I was in that energy, I didn't have the clarity or the wherewithal to remove myself from it, from that relationship. So my energy just quit. I've never really, I don't think I spoke in detail about this before, but I will today. I think it's important because what happened to me yesterday was a revisitation of that energy. So I'll get back to that in a minute. So what happened towards the end of my marriage, and again, I was only married less than 5 years. We were together almost 25. But what started to happen when my ego or my tolerance would not allow for the clarity needed to move away from this man is my energy started to I said that stress is a warning signal from your body. When that was no longer or wasn't effective anymore, or maybe it never was, I just assimilated the stress as part of my life. I didn't really understand that it was something I could relieve by, you know what I mean, changing things. Just this is the ignorance that we suffer when we walk around in the dark. So anyway, I remember being at work, and this was after the divorce was final, well after. It was during the 6-month period where the divorce had been final, which was December of that year, 2 years ago. And before my ex husband moved out of my home, which was 6 months later. So it was June of the next year that he finally moved out of my house. So during that 6-month period, I was trying to be cooperative while he found another house to live in. And you have to understand, it was a very financially fraught time. It was the middle of COVID, and banks were not. They were being taken advantage of by people trying to get loans when they knew they couldn't pay them back. And I'm saying that out of ignorance because I don't know anything for sure, but this is basically what the bank told me ultimately, that they were being incredibly careful about who they lent to because of the fraught financial environment where people were losing their jobs because businesses were closing, and they were trying to get loans or refinances on their homes when they knew they couldn't pay them back. I don't know how much of that is actually true, but that's basically the energetic environment, financial environment we were in. So, and this is what was explained to me by the bank, because during this time after the divorce, before we initiated the divorce and before the divorce was final, I was trying to buy our marital home from my ex-husband. So as a self-employed person, we had our own business. I spent 7 months with the bank that I've been with for 30 years trying to get a loan to buy the house from my ex-husband. And long story short, I was denied the loan because I'm self-employed, and they just basically told me that they could not lend me the money, and that was the reason they could not. that the environment was too financially fraught, and they didn't want to take the chance on a self-employed person with an 845 credit score. To toot my own horn, but anyway, so that fell through, and I almost immediately, a friend of ours in the real estate business, I gave them a call. They had a company that they work with. They sent me to that company. I got the loan, and it was closed in less than 30 days. So I bought the house from my ex-husband. It was incredibly frustrating. So during that 7-month period, I was living with my ex-husband, not sure if I'm going to be able to buy the home, or am I going to end up in an apartment somewhere or living with a family member, because things just went off track. So During this 6-month period between the end of when the divorce was final and when he finally moved out, I was being as cooperative as I could be. And this is again my tolerance or my ego leading the way, saying, stay until you find a house and, then go because we're divorced now and we're not supposed to live together. And I'm not happy here or comfortable here. I want to move on with my life. And uh, so, before this happened to me, this energetic break, which was 6 months after the divorce, I was tolerant. I was trying very hard to just get through this. And so I would get up and go to work every day. He was living in one bedroom, I was in the other. We would have some meals together. We worked together every day. I would go on clean outs with him because we were estate liquidators. I worked in my office most of the time running an auction company. And we just kept going. And, one thing you have to understand about living with somebody who is, I hate to use the word narcissist again, but who is uh, emotionally unaware. Is that fair? Who wasn't connected to his feelings or his ability to assimilate or his ability to process anything. He was just going on as if nothing had changed, as if we were still married, because he honestly treated me exactly the same way. He was very task oriented, and his currency was service or doing. So he continued to do that. He would do things for me. He would shop. He would bring home food. And I kind of fell back into this relationship with him that was void of the marriage. And it was just kind of easy, and it just came easily. And I didn't understand, by allowing this to continue, and I allowed it, that I was heading towards uh, this this edge of a cliff and blindfolded, and I didn't understand that I was going to fall. And when I fell hard. So I'm on this path where I'm living this married life with this man I'm no longer married to, and I'm trying really hard to hold my breath until he leaves, but he wouldn't leave. And I realized after a period of time that he was using the uh, the economic situation in the world to kind of as an excuse not to move on. And I didn't know that then. I know it now. He didn't want to leave. He did not want to leave my presence, my energy. And if you've ever been with somebody who has a narcissistic tendencies, they oh God, this is going to sound really clinical, and forgive me, but they attach to a host and they don't let the host go, and until the host has the energy to go, or the host dies, which really kind of is what happened to me. So I was the source of energy for him, and I continued to be that source of energy for him. And I didn't understand that I was being drained, continuing to be drained. I guess I had been drained ongoing for the whole relationship, but I didn't understand how low my reserves were at this point. I had let go of the marriage in my mind, in my heart. We were done. I was no longer looking for a way back. I didn't want that relationship anymore. I knew I had to move on, even though had not had my awakening yet. I just knew I had to get away from this toxic relationship, from the toxin that was in my body. I knew I'd had to have my solitude in order for it to be released from my body, even though I really didn't understand how. I just knew I needed him gone. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Like any divorced person, is allowed for the other party to go so they can heal. So I always expected he would want to do the same. He would just want to go and start his life over, but that wasn't the case. He did not want to go. And it wasn't until much later that I realized the scope of what it was happening. But anyway, so he was just going on like nothing had changed, and he was treating me like we were still married. And it was very energetically confusing for me because I knew that we were no longer married and I no longer wanted this, but I was still in this energy. And I think I have to really refer to this as energy because Your mind thinks, your heart feels, your body reacts, but the energy is what is at the base of all of it. We are all energetic beings. The I heard this recently, the universe is electric, the earth is magnetic, we are electromagnetic. We are this conduit between the universe and the earth. And if we're not in sync, or we're not understanding that, and we don't care for that aspect of our being, we live uh, bent over backwards. And I'm saying that to be dramatic because it's how it needs to be. Imagine bending over backwards and walking that way with your hands and feet backwards. It is impossible. But that's what we end up doing, or I should say, I ended up doing, because I didn't understand how out of alignment I was with the energy, the animating energy in this body. So my mind and ego was telling me to just get through it. And I was trying my best to do it, until one day at work, which was, uh, nearly probably 5.5 months into this 6 month period between the divorce and when he left. I was sitting at my desk at work working on an auction, and I started to become breathless. I couldn't catch my breath. I just started to breathe deeply and then really shallowly. And I felt this tightness in my chest, and I couldn't breathe. I stripped off my jacket, my shoes, my socks, and I have a recliner in my office, which I had recently put in there so I could take naps, because I was so exhausted so often. Another symptom of this that I didn't understand at the time. I would have to stop and just lay down in order to get my energy back. If I, God, if we, had that 2020 vision in the rearview mirror, that, if I had it then, boy, what would I have done differently? But so this day, I was so I thought I was having a heart attack, and I think this is what it is when your anxiety gets the best of you. We have these panic attacks, and I've never experienced anything like this before. I was calmly working at my desk. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't exerting myself. I just started to feel this, like, it started in my solar plexus and went into my chest, this tightness, and I couldn't catch my breath. So I laid back. Boy, even when I think about it, I get breathless. So I laid on my chair, and of course, my ex-husband, who was in the warehouse, comes running in. He's like, "What's the matter?" And he's helping me get comfortable, and he's trying to help me. And I know subconsciously or unconsciously that he's the cause of this, but I'm still not able to care for myself and tell him to leave. So I allowed him to take me home, and I went to bed and I rested. And then within a few hours, I felt a little better. But I knew something happened that I had to pay attention to, and I didn't understand it then. So I took the rest of the day off. I went to bed that night, slept fitfully, and then I went to work the next day. And I was, I was as well as I was before, where my energy was always low. I was always struggling to get through the day, and this had just become my norm. And uh, I was very concerned about this because I didn't understand what was happening. I think I knew, like I said, subconsciously, that it was due to this prison I had put myself in by allowing him to stay in my home, that I was allowing the lion to live in my house, basically, and I was completely vulnerable still. And I didn't understand it then, that I was still so vulnerable to his energy, to his inability to respond to my suffering. So he sees what I went through. He takes me home, he cares for me like he always has. He's very, very attentive. He wants to help me. What can I do? I'll bring you food, all these things. And, of course, I allowed it, even though I'm starting to understand what's happening. And by the next day, I felt better. I went to work. I went, and then what I did is I sat him down and I said, "Listen, I'm starting to have a physical reaction to you being here. I'm becoming incapable of the energy that's between us. I'm not incapable. It didn't make any sense. I'm becoming intolerant to the energy between us. I can't heal with you here, is how I put it. I said, would you please go stay with your friend or your mom or your sister and allow me the space that I need to heal because I'm not doing well. And he looked at me and he paused and he just said, I can't. And I tried to remain calm and I said, I don't think you understand what's going on. I'm physically like unable to have you here anymore. You can see this. Would you please go? And he said, no. And he went upstairs. And so thinking back is more upsetting than when it happened because I didn't understand what was happening fully. But anyway, a couple more days go by and I get up in the morning, like at 5 a.m. after not being able to sleep. And I went for a drive because I was starting to have the same panicky feeling again. I went for a drive at 5 a.m. I didn't know where I was going. I just had to get out of the house because he was sleeping in the next room. I ended up pulling in a parking lot and I sat there panting because I could not breathe. I thought I was having a heart attack for sure this time, unfamiliar with panic attacks. And I called my daughter, which I had not done. Well, that's not the truth. I called her the first time and I had a discussion with her about what was happening to me. And she helped me that day to get through it. And she came over, spent the day with me. So that I forgot about that part. Yeah. So anyway, I called her and I said, could you please help me? She drove to where I was. She sat in the car with me. She brought me water and I talked through her what was happening. She understood what was happening. And she asked if I wanted to go to the hospital. I said, no, I'm good. Just give me a few minutes. I just need you to sit with me. And I sat there and I allowed the feeling to pass enough where I felt comfortable going home. Oh, forgive me. I completely conflated those two events. This was the day she came home with me, the one time I called her. The first time I didn't call her. I didn't want to bother her or burden her with this. But sitting in the truck this morning at 5:30 a.m., I called her, worried about my health, my safety. She took me home, left my truck there. She took me home and spent the day with me. He had gone to work and tried to help me through the day. And I got through it. I felt better in the afternoon. It took quite a while, but I knew he had to go. So after she left, which she spent most of the day with me, I sat down and wrote a letter. And I emailed the letter to him before he came. And basically, I tried one last time. I said, you need to understand that I'm suffering. I feel like I thought I was having a heart attack. I can't work. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't rest. Would you please have mercy and go? Get out of my house so I can heal. And it's amazing to me that this happened, but this is how deeply unaffected by my suffering that he was. Because his response to my heartfelt letter, after seeing what happened to me, he knew that I got up that morning and left. He understood that I was suffering. He wrote me back a long email explaining why he couldn't leave and that he wasn't leaving. And I lost my mind. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I cried hysterically. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. So I went to bed that night. He came home and went in his room, and I went to bed that night trying to just, survive it, which is what I was wired to do. And by the next morning, 6:30 a.m., I woke up a full-blown panic attack again, and I knew that I needed help this time. So I got myself up and threw on some clothes and I went in his room and I said, you need to take me to the hospital. I thought I was dying. I mean, that's how bad it was. So of course he dutifully drives me to the hospital. And I get in there and I go through the admissions part and I get into a room and they start a saline drip and they're asking me all kinds of questions. And I ended up there for about 4 hours. I had an MRI or CAT scan so they checked for heart issues. And I knew that none of that was the reason for this. I knew what it was. And when the nurse, when I got there, I finally understood that I had to make this happen, that I had to let go of my tolerance and I had to make this happen. So as he stood in the room with me, as I just got in the room, I said, "You need to leave." I said, "You need to go home and get your stuff and you need to move out." I said, "I cannot live with you in that home anymore." And I think that the evidence of what just happened to me and what has been happening to me should be enough for you to see that. I said, "Please go get your things and leave my home." And I'm trying to remain calm because I am in dire straits here. I am energetically suffering. I have no energy. I can barely breathe. And I said, "Look at what's happened to me. Please go." He wordlessly left, which I believed he was going to get his things and leave. And this is the unbelievable part of this story. And this is just really a testament of how incredibly dependent on my energy he was. And as a, I don't want to go off track too much, but people who are, I have to use the word narcissist, they don't understand their impact on other people. And if they do, they don't care. And I don't know which is true. I'm going to just say that out loud. I don't know. I always gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I still believe that he has the capacity, but maybe is just too unaware of his own tendencies to understand that what he's done is not only not good for me, but it's not good for him in the long run because we manifest what we believe. So for him, he created an environment where it was proven to him that, his greatest fear is true, that he is unlovable. So this is just a testament of how deeply unaware emotionally that he was. And I don't know about now, but he was. Um, I sent him away. I was in the hospital for 4 hours. And when they released me after 2 bags of saline and some antibiotic that I don't know why they gave me still to this day, um, and a CAT scan or an MRI, was it CAT scan or MRI, whatever one looks at your heart. I called my sister and I said, "Could you come pick me up?" And she left work and she came and got me. And as I went outside, waiting for her, I was completely shaken. I still couldn't breathe correctly. I was still completely drained. I texted my ex husband and I said, "Please tell me that you've gone and that I can go home." And after a few seconds, a text popped on my phone where he basically told me that he didn't have time, that he didn't have time to look for another place to stay. "I'm sorry." So, so after all of that, this man was still not leaving. And what happened next is really, really showed me for the first time what I was dealing with. And I didn't understand until this moment what I was dealing with. And I was crying hysterically. I didn't text him back. I got in my sister's vehicle and I was crying and she was just like, "What the hell happened?" And I could barely tell her because I was hysterical. And she said, "Give me the phone." She called my ex-husband. God bless her. In a moment of absolute courageous energy, because I know she didn't want to get involved. And she very calmly, he picked up the phone and she had him on speakerphone and she said very calmly to him, "What are you doing? Why don't you leave her home? Why would you want to be somewhere you're not wanted?" And he started to argue with her about how I didn't know what I was talking about and I was fine and that I'm blowing it out of proportion and it's his house too and he should be able to stay. And we went on and on. And I lost my mind and I started swearing and screaming next to my sister, "Get the fuck out of my house." And when he heard me, when he realized that he was on speakerphone, he said to my sister, "I didn't know she could hear me." And he hung up. And I was in hysterics. My sister took me to get some food and then took me home. And I basically convalesced for the rest of the day. I was still exhausted. I didn't know what he was gonna do. I really didn't know if he was gonna attack my sister, if he was going to come home in a rage. I didn't know. I didn't know this man at all. But what I learned for the first time when I heard him say, "You didn't tell me she could hear me," was how insidious his energy was. And the word insidious is the right word because it's the one that popped into my mind. His He was so energetically inclined to drain me like a vampire that until someone else saw what he was doing, he was not going to stop. That's how hypnotized he had me. And when I spoke to a therapist right before I asked for the divorce, literally the day of, well, that's not true. It wasn't the day of, right around the time I asked for the divorce, she told me I was suffering from Stockholm syndrome. And that he was emotionally manipulating me to get sex, is how she put it. And she said that you have to understand that you are suffering a syndrome where you don't see this man for who he is. And I didn't understand what she meant until the next day. And then I wrote about all this. It's all in my book. But anyway, I didn't understand how insidious his energy was, how intent he was on keeping me under keeping me in the position I was in where he could stay adjacent to me, even though we weren't together. So I didn't know how he was going to react. I was terrified. I didn't know if he was going to, retaliate against my sister, if he was going to come home in a rage. I had no idea. I didn't know this person. So I went home and towards that evening, he came home and unlocked the door, came in, didn't even look at me. I was sitting on the couch in the living room. He went upstairs into his room. He gathered his things, what he needed, and he wordlessly left. He didn't look at me. He didn't say a word. He just left. And I finally exhaled for the first time in months. Wow. It's amazing how the feeling comes right back. But this is what happened to me. This is what I refer to as my soul pulling me out by my ear. Because if my energy would not have broken, I don't know how much longer I would have allowed him to stay. While I was trying to be this cooperative partner, trying to keep my business intact and not leave everything and destroy everything, when I was the one who didn't destroy anything. You know what I'm saying? That onus was on me because I felt responsible for what happened to me. I felt like this was, I didn't understand that I was being taken advantage of, that I was being manipulated. I did not understand that. So, and this is something, then I'll say this only once, that empaths have to be aware of in their world. Because when we incline to see the best in others, and we are emotionally wired to do so, and that's what empathetic people are, we tend not to see the worst in them because we're not wired to see the worst in people. We are wired to love. And I believe this is part of my soul's purpose and why I've been awakened at this time in my life to take this new path, because I am love. And the love that I gave my ex-husband, although misplaced, was who I was. I didn't look for reasons to leave. I didn't look for I trained myself not to be a reactive person because of what I went through as a child and a young person. I trained myself to delay gratification. I trained myself to not to react, quote unquote, but to respond, to give myself time to allow the pendulum of my emotions to swing from one way all the way to the other and then settle in the middle. I trained myself to have this um, balance in my life. But what I did not understand was that this balance was only mental. It was not emotional or energetic. That I completely ignored because I didn't have a connection to it. I didn't know it. So I loved uh, Without Boundaries, and I was destroyed because of it. Destroyed is the only way I can put it. Shredded, pulverized because of a karmic relationship that was meant to teach me to care enough about myself to create boundaries in my life. It was also meant to teach me, of course, the karmic lessons that I came to this earthly incarnation to learn, that my soul had focused on for this incarnation, which was to no longer view myself as a victim and to activate and learn how to use my own power, which is my ability to illuminate, my ability to love, my natural, universe given ability to love, my heart center. And this is something empathetic people, this is where their powers lie, in their ability to love. So you can see the double edged sword that it is, though. If you give this love to the wrong person, you can be annihilated. So, without proper boundaries and the ability to protect yourself, this is the lesson we have to learn. And this is the lesson that I learned. So, when I talk about this man, and I know I've spoken about him several times, and I didn't really talk about the insidious nature of our relationship before, because I didn't want him viewed as a villain or as a bad person, because I don't believe that. I never have, and I never will. He is trapped in his own darkness. And he lost the most precious jewel he will ever hold in his life. And that is me. And no, that's not my ego talking, or that's not me blowing myself up to feel better. That is just a fact. He held a gem, which is an empathetic person who has a heart bigger than any other aspect of their character. And he destroyed it. He didn't just destroy me, he destroyed himself. He destroyed any potential for him to be loved in his life. So he's sitting in the darkness right now, wondering what to do. And this is why he's tried to stay in my life every day since this time, since this happened. He's, why I had to recently, and I talked about this a couple of times ago. On my birthday, a couple of months ago, I told him I didn't want a personal connection with him anymore because I was ready to let it go. I had learned everything I learned. I retired 6 months ago now from his daily, being in his daily energy. I learned what I needed to learn. I moved away from that 6 months ago, and now I'm at the point where I no longer want any connection to him because that is my right. It's not out of anger. It's not out of disappointment. It's not out of vengeance. It is just my preference. That the energy of this man in the state he is not conducive to the energy I'm in now. And I will give you the example that happened to me yesterday to really illustrate this point and the reason why I talked about that, what happened in the past to get me out of that relationship and to finally get him out of my home. And then it was my choice how long I stayed. And I stayed with him in that business for another year, a little more than a year. No, another year, almost exactly, after he finally left my home, to learn what I needed to learn to not allow this type of energy in my world ever again. I stayed on the battlefield, learning to use my sword and my shield. And I continued to fight for what I needed to live this life free, free of the possibility of this ever happening again. I said this way, way back before the divorce to my sister. I said, I need to get whatever this is in my aura out because I knew my aura called to me what came to me in my world. I said, I need to get whatever this is out of my aura before I ever knew what I was talking about. This is long before the divorce because I knew it was up to me to clear the way for true love and true freedom in my life. So I stayed an additional year in this man's energy, at times still suffering. Like I told a story about being in a truck with him, where I still had to be in this man's energy when I knew how insidious it was. And I knew he wasn't physically dangerous. I knew he wasn't anything other than an emotionally um, vacant man. I knew that. I wasn't in any physical danger. I know this man loves me in his own way. And if I allowed him to, he would care for me in the ways that he's able for the rest of his life. I don't want that anymore. And that's the reason why I cut off my personal connection because he kept trying to do for me. What do you need? I'll go with you. I'll take care of, I'll fix it. And I knew that if I didn't tell him, I no longer want this personal connection with you. If I didn't come out and tell him that clearly, that he would never go completely. So, in the interest of my future being cleared of this man's energy completely and 100%, I severed it. So, if you were wondering why, when I talk about how I love this man and how I appreciate everything that he's done for me, that he played a role in this lifetime that allowed me to graduate human school, that's why I love him. I don't want him. I don't have any interest in continuing a relationship with him because he's not capable in the 3D of meeting my energy. He is in a low vibrational state. I am in a higher vibrational state. Doesn't compute anymore. So it's almost like an opposing magnetism now. And I'll give the example I started this podcast thinking about why that is the case and how important it is for me to keep moving forward and to leave this old energy behind, this old energetic field behind. And I've been told over the last year several times that I'm going to move, that I'm going to move from where I'm living now into some other place. This place has been described in many different ways, but somewhere far from here. And I didn't really understand 100% what that meant until yesterday or why I needed to move. And this is about energy again. I'm in an energetic field. And you have to really look at this as energy. We talk about feelings and reactions in our bodies and our minds, but I want you to just peel all that back and think about just waves of energy. And we're made of energy. The earth is made of energy. We all have the same, you know, elements in us. We are all carbon and whatever the other ones are. I'm not a scientist. I guess I could have known that, but I don't. We were all made of the same things as stars and planets and the earth. Humans are made of the same energy, same components, same material. So when you think about the energy that runs through everything, that runs the universe, we are all a part of that energy. That's why I've said many times, we are all one energy. We're not separate. The bodies make us appear separate. It gives us solidarity so we can have an individualized experience in this incarnation. But it's not who we are. And we go on as energy when we die, our body lies down and we go. And if we can think of life that way, boy, it takes a big burden off. It allows you to really think about who you are and what you can really do in this incarnation. And it doesn't limit you or ground you um, or cause you to give up. It is energy is a living and breathing thing. It is a dynamic thing. So So we're all living in these energy fields. We are these energy fields. The air is energy, the water's energy, everything is energy. So, I don't know technically what I'm talking about. So forgive me if I get questioned. I'm going to be an idiot. But all I'm saying is I understand this conceptually, that we are all energetic beings. The earth, everything, the air is energy. So I'm living in this beautiful home that's been referred to as a home that I love, but I know I have to leave. And I thought, well, yeah, I know I'm probably going to leave, and I'm completely open to that. But now I understand why. We are living in an energetic field. So the field that I'm living in is an old energetic field. It is part of my old life. So even the home that I'm living in, even though I saged it and I do cleansing exercises in my body and I ask the universe to clear and detoxify my body on a regular basis, and I have wellness practices that are designed for that too, I'm still in an old energetic field. And again, I didn't really understand this until today, this morning, because yesterday I was a while back. I was asked to do a favor for a friend, somebody I care very much about, somebody from my old life, my old business life, not my business, but somebody from that old environment, somebody I keep in touch with. And I was asked to do a favor. And yesterday was the day I did the favor. I went and did this favor, and I spent a long period of time in this old energetic environment. Now, my home, I spend a lot of time clearing, and even though I feel safe and comfortable here, I still understand that it's almost like there's an energy field around the house that is my old energy. And although I'm pretty good at keeping my immediate energy field clear, my body and maybe 3 feet around me, again, I'm speaking out of ignorance, but what I'm thinking or feeling is that old energy is all around me. So when I walked into this old environment yesterday and spent a good part of the day there, within an hour, I would say about an hour, I started to feel the tightening in my chest, the chaotic energy in my solar plexus, and I guess I would describe it as anxiety, come up into my body again. And I'm sitting there thinking, as I'm doing this task, which is a simple task, what the fuck is going on? I'm with people I care about. They're not close people, they're not family members, but they're people that are their associates from my old business, and they're people I care about very much. I only see them on work-related things, and once in a while we have breakfast, but basically they're people that I know from my old world. So I don't know why I keep trying to explain that. They're just from my old energetic environment. And I'm in this old energetic environment that I don't control, that seems perfectly innocent, and I'm starting to suffer. And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, I don't know if I can stay. I might have to get up and leave." And I'm like compelled to get up and leave. Instead, I just take a couple of deep breaths and I'm thinking, okay, G, you can do this. Just relax. You're doing a favor. You're not in danger. You're fine. What's going on? And I took a few deep breaths, and then the feeling passed. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I got something to drink. I went back to my task, and I'm good for probably a good hour. And then I start to feel it again. And I'm like, what is this? What is going on? So I was there about 6 hours. And again, I love these two people. But that environment, this old environment, which I frequented often, and it was just a connection to my old life, my old business, my old relationship. And I guess that's how my body perceives it. I guess that's the best way to put it, is my energy perceives it as an old environment. So the energetic field is an old one. So I'm in this energetic field and I'm not in the protection of my home, and I'm starting to suffer. And I'm starting to breathe deeply, and I'm doing the blowing like you're pregnant, like you're having a baby, the hoo hoo hoo, and I'm like, what is going on? So I got through the day. I said my goodbyes and I left, and it was all I could do to get in my truck and get myself home. I was shaking, I was anxious, it was reminiscent of the energy that I felt before I started to have my breakdown. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I got home and I took a shower and I sat down and I said to myself, "What was that?" And I got through the rest of the day. I stayed home. I ate a light meal. I meditated. I tried to just sit still, and I couldn't shake this now very low grade anxiety in my mostly my solar plexus in my chest. So I relaxed. I turned on, I watched a little TV, and I went to bed and I slept pretty well. And I woke up this morning with this intuitive hit. And I tend to have intuitive hits in the morning, and this is something that I'm aware of. I started to think, is this my body reacting to an old energetic field? Is this my energy reacting to an old energetic field? Is this my imagination, or is that what just happened? And this is a really good example of the duality of our being. My brain was fine. I'm with these two people I care about. I'm perfectly happy being here. My ex-husband's nowhere near, although it's a place he frequents because it was a part of our company that we worked with, this other company. And I care about these two people. It's not them, it's the environment. And I visit these people on occasion, but it's only for a few minutes at a time. So I never was there for a long period. So I'm waking up thinking, am I imagining what just happened? Or is my intuition telling me what I'm hearing loud and clear? Which is that's an old energetic field that is no longer compatible with the energy in my body, with the change of frequency in my body. So now I'm finely tuned to this new radio station that gets classical music. And I just walked into a keg party playing, the oldies but goodies. I mean, I was just blown away by this revelation that this is why I will eventually move out of this old energetic field, which is this home, this city, this state, and even maybe the country. And I don't mean that against anyone or any other thing. I'm only talking about the relation to my world was my old world. But I feel like for the first time, I understand what this means. That my energetic frequency has changed so much internally. It has affected me so much that I can no longer be in the old energy. And I'm still shaking from yesterday. I've suffered what I can only call an energetic hangover. When I woke up this morning, I felt very shaky. When I did my energy exercises, which I do every other day, there's a moment in the exercise where I put my hand on a crystal and on a piece of wood, this beautiful carved piece of wood. And it just started to happen. It's not anything I put in place in order to use as an instrument of my wellness routine. It just happens to be on a mantle that I lean against to do one of my exercises. And I just one day put my hand on the crystal, which is it's almost like a 2-pound clear crystal. By the way, I have geodes and crystals all over my home, and I have for years, and I didn't ever understand why until the last year or so. They are so important for absorbing negative energy and for emanating the energy that I need to thrive anymore. But anyway, I put my hand on this big crystal, my left hand, and my right hand on this natural carved egg that I got out of a home that we cleaned out. Actually, the crystal came from that same place. And what I do during my wellness routine is I just rest my hands there and I rest my whole body. I drop my shoulders, I'm standing, and I just allow my body to relax. And those are the moments where I used to get ideas for my book or for my articles. I used to have an intuitive hit during those moments where I was resting, and I would go over to the table and I would write down the idea or the message. And that was, I filled books full of these messages during that year of the 7 months of healing, and then the subsequent months of rediscovering myself, and of adding to my book, because the book that I'm writing, is a chronicle of my awakening. Honestly, it's a chronicle of my evolution. So the book is written in, uh, it started with as an article about my ex-husband. Actually, the working title was called, it was the title was vacant, 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 because that's what I finally knew I was dealing with when I had that understanding of this man during that moment in my sister's vehicle, when I realized the insidious nature of him, of his energy. So I started to write this article almost immediately, and this was another article. I had already written a few that I had posted on my blog, and this was just another article. But it quickly turned into a documentation of what I was going through. So I documented uh, a kind of a summary of this man, and then it started. It's so weird how this kind of unfolded. I began to write about my awakening. I started I'm like every day, or first it was just a month's worth, and then weeks, and then somewhere towards the end, it was a daily account of what was happening to me. So this book that I'm writing is about my journey from blindness to my awakening, and then beyond, which is, I'm still writing today. Anyway, I lost my train of thought there. I was, I think I was talking about this, yeah, my energy in this old environment. I was so surprised because I care about these people, and I'm like, I got out of bed and I still felt this anxiety in my body, and I'm leaning on the crystal and on there I was, the crystal and the wood carved egg, and I was allowing just my energy to relax, still feeling this old anxiety. My hands were shaking, my shoulders were still shaking, and it felt reminiscent of that 7th month period between when he left and I really felt healed, where every day I would feel this anxiety still in my body. And I allowed myself to relax, and then I had this, and then I just knew, I just knew that I was not, um, that it wasn't my ego telling me that you're having an energetic reaction to an old toxin, that it was my intuition, which, who I've begun to trust completely. And I understand where my ego is, and I understand where my mind belongs. And the disconnection between the two is enough where I can distinguish between the two. So that's the clarity that I was talking about. The clarity that I now have to trust my intuition. The clarity that I awoke with to know that, you're not imagining what happened. You are now energetically demagnetized, or I have an opposing magnetism for that energy. So I describe my ex-husband as aluminum, and I don't think that that's accurate. I think he is an opposing magnetism now. So I cannot be in that old energy and not be reminded of the fact that I don't belong there anymore. And this was really surprising to learn, is that this increase in my energetic frequency, which I've really only been speaking about with my, experientially, I've experienced the symptoms of this energetic upgrade, and I did a whole podcast about it, where I feel, I can feel anxious, or I can feel dizzy, or I get ringing in my ear, or I have a pain at the base of my skull, or I get headaches, or I have even joint aches and sleeplessness. For a while, I was only sleeping a few hours every night. And I've gone beyond that, where I don't feel the symptoms the same way as I did before. I feel the stillness inside of me now, which has been disrupted by this exposure to this old energy. So I'm sleeping 8 hours a night now. 8 hours a night. I haven't done that in years. And I feel I'm in this completely different energetic field. So so my home is affected by my current energy. So I can keep it sort of cleansed, I think, if I'm understanding this correctly. But I don't have that same ability to cleanse these old environments. So when I walk into an old one, even though my mind is fine, my body, my energy reacts. And it's screaming out to me, "You don't belong here anymore." And I think this is like a new it's a new tool. It's not a new tool. It's not a tool. It's an activation of a superpower. I think it really is. It's an awakening of an empowerment within me that I'm now able to sense energetically when I'm somewhere I shouldn't be. So when I'm being told that I'm going to need to move away from this home, and it's been described as a home that I love dearly, but I know I have to leave. That's how it was described to me. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go wherever my soul wants to go, but do I really need to leave my home? I love this place. Yes, I do. That eventually I believe that that's what will happen. That an opportunity will come or a relationship will come that will take me away from here. And I don't know how long it will take, or, I don't know anything. But now I understand that is I'm in an old energetic field, and the energy in my body is no longer tolerant. And I think this is a refinement of my energy. So it's like my energy is more refined. So if something's more refined, it's more delicate. And I don't mean that I'm delicate. I just mean the way that I'm calibrated now is more delicate. Um, it's more it's like I can hear dog whistles now, where before I was dense to them. I know that's a terrible example, but it's more refined. It's more finite. It's more calibrated to a environment that's conducive to it. So when I try to remain in an old environment, it goes off track. It becomes chaotic. It doesn't compute, and it tells me unequivocally, "Get out." So I'm suffering today what I can only refer to as an energetic hangover, because I still feel this residual low vibrational energy in my body. And I've already asked my spirit guides for a cleansing and a detoxification, but I think I'm going to have to do a little more work because I still feel it even right now. So this is the energetic aftermath of me being exposed to old energetic fields. And I don't know if I sound insane or not. That's not my concern. I'm only reporting real time what's happening to me, and I don't know anything else. But all I know is that I was exposed to an old energy for more than a few minutes, and it had a negative impact on my body. And it's funny because once I got home, I felt this incredible relief. And I don't want to make it sound like I have to be in my house in order to feel good, because I go out to dinner with my friends and family all the time and I'm fine. I don't think it's I don't think it's an inability an in a let me speak a little slower. I don't think it is an inability to be in other energy fields. I think it's just an inability for me to be in my old energy fields, in the ones that were in my old life. So when I'm walking around this place, I mean, I have the advent to walk into an old nightmare, even though it looks innocent from the outside. And that is how my energy perceives it. So because I'm calibrated differently now, I cannot enjoy that environment anymore. And this is something I'm still kind of I'm still kind of reasoning out. I don't really understand it except for that I understand that I'm energy and I understand that I'm living in an energetic field. We all are. And that whatever we reap, we sow. So if we are in an I don't want to turn this into a lesson for you, but I guess I'm still kind of trying to understand this myself. When we allow ourselves to believe the worst about ourselves, we create that energy vortex around us, and it sucks in the things that are magnetized to that. So we end up with space junk floating all around, orbiting around us, and we don't understand why goodness can't find us or blessings can't find us. Holy shit! This is amazing. It's the most literal illustration or example of this that I've experienced so far. And it's mind-blowing that I'm not welcome in those old environments. My energy is not welcome. And I put it that way because I want it to be understood that the density is in the old energy, not in me. My density has changed. It is lightened. My love, which is my heart center, is now again who I am. It is not shrouded or hidden or shredded. It is fully activated again. And this is how I'm meant to go through the rest of this lifetime. And 111 just came up on the timer, which is another, it's just a validation to me that what I'm saying is the truth, that I am love and I cannot be encumbered by anything that has a lower density than love. And I hope I'm putting that in a way that makes sense because love is a light, elevated energy. And that's why we elevate or evolve because of love. When we are cleared enough to love, we become elevated. When we clear our emotional debris and we love ourselves, we activate love within us, and that love makes us buoyant. And that buoyancy is what elevates us, and that elevation is evolution. I know I've said this before, and I guess maybe I'm saying it for the first time with a true understanding of what it means. It is our ability to live as love, which is our energetic signature, which is what we came here as. If we can live this life as that energetic love, we are blessed with love and the abundance of the universe. We become open channels for abundance and all the other things I talked about in the last podcast, which are, we become a vessel for wisdom and for the secrets of the universe and for alien, ideas and oh God, it's just amazing. We are energetic beings. We are electromagnetic beings. We are tuned or not tuned to our environments. And I'm discovering that I'm no longer in tune with my old environment. Like, not just technically, like literally. It's amazing to me. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because it was very relevant. And um, I'm still blown away by the whole idea that, you know, we talk about energy kind of so like as this concept. We don't really understand how literal it is. We just another example that we're all the same. We're all made of the same thing. Not just materially, but energetically and when we understand that, we become powerful. we engage with our natural gifts, and then we become the version of ourselves we're meant to become, uninhibited by old dark energy fields, with a desire, an energetic, a physical, a heart, and a mental desire to keep moving towards this new energy field, this new lighter energy field, this love energy field. And I can only hope that my future holds elements of this, where I'll be moved to this environment, or I'll meet people who are in this environment or from this energetic environment, and that will become my life. I still love the people, I still love my friends and family, don't get me wrong. It has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the environment, the energetic field that I'm in. And I guess I should be more honest than I was a moment ago about that. There are some people in my life that I energetically don't meld with anymore. And they're not really in my life anymore, because I felt that energetic exchange and I knew I had to change it, and I did. So it's not 100%. My old life is not 100% intact, friends and family wise. I'm not going to lie about that. But this is just what happens. Is you see yourself for what you are, and you have to make decisions to either live your best life or continue to be dragged into your old one. And although this example of what happened to me yesterday is not the people there are not, I just want to make that clear in case they ever listen to this podcast. It's the environment, the energetic field. I don't really know any more than that, but this was the first time I really got to understand the difference in densities of our energy and how it affects us. And when we're aware of it, what power we have, and when we're not, how disempowered we are. I am in absolute awe of what I'm learning, and so grateful to have a voice to share it. Whether it makes sense to anyone else or not really isn't the point, I guess, but I just want to report what happens, and I want to be honest about it, and I am shaking in kind of excitement for this new understanding. Now I have a new tool. I understand how better to protect myself, how better to create an environment for myself that is healthy and loving and lighter. So I'm going to leave because I don't know what else to say. I'm just still kind of stunned. Thank you for listening. As always, I appreciate you very much. This I did neglect to mention before, because this is audio, but I do put it on YouTube. So if you hear it on YouTube and you want to leave a comment or ask a question, I appreciate that. I will appreciate that. I'm happy to hear anybody's comments or ideas or concerns or whatever. I think it's only YouTube that you can leave comments, but my podcast is on YouTube, so it's Postcards from a Soul, I think is my handle, or you can search Postcards from a Soul, and Her Human. I think you have to do Postcards from a Soul and Her Human. I'm not sure. Either Postcards from a Soul or Postcards from a Soul and Her Human to find me on YouTube, or you can go to my website, which is postcardsfromasoul.com, and my social links are there, and it's there. Um, but I'm curious if anybody has a comment or uh, a question, on all of my podcasts. So thank you again for listening. I appreciate you very much, and I will talk to you soon.